All right, everyone, welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks and Game Time. It is Brian Hines back with Alex Barth again. Hope everyone had a wonderful long weekend, 4th of July weekend, but we're back because we are about 2 weeks away from the start
Yep.
of training camp here, and we don't have a contract extension to break down this show. So, while we're 2 weeks away, while we don't have any, immediate Patriot news, we're going to kind of take a step back from the Patriots, look around the AFC East a little bit, look around the rest of the NFL, and kind of get caught up in that sense. Maybe see where the Patriots sit on, as a whole, as a landscape. So, Bar's favorite show because he gets to rip on the Bills a lot, I'm sure, during this. So, and we also, if we want to start in the AFC East, we have some pressure because I think I said during this show last year that Aaron Rodgers is going to get hurt and the Jets are going to tank, and that happened. So we have to have some type of really good call or prediction in this show. But we can start with the AFC East as a whole. Do you want to start with the Bills, or do you want to save the Bills, or what are you thinking?
Well, I guess let's just do it this way. What would you who is your favorite to win the division? Like, who, if you would have picked it, because we did this on Catch 22 last week, and Evan said that it's the Bills division to lose. And I disagree with that. Not even in the sense that I don't think the Bills can win it. I think between those three teams at the top and really the Bills and the Jets, I think it's pretty wide open. I mean, they're all going to win 10 or 11 games.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if the division comes down to a tiebreaker. Like I as a whole, the Patriots are clearly the fourth team. Maybe they make some noise, but I think the Patriots are clearly the fourth team. Above them, though, yes, I guess it's the Bills division in the sense that they've won it, 3 years in a row now, 4 years in a row. But I'm picking the Jets, assuming Rodgers stays healthy. But if you told me you were picking the Bills, or you told me you were picking the Dolphins, like, I think there's a strong case to be made for any of them. And I think there's going to be great parity in the division this year.
Yeah, it feels like they're all in that, like, a step below the Chiefs, obviously, but then, like, they're all just kind of in that muddied range, like
I would
right
even say
below
a step below that. A step below the Chiefs, you have the Ravens, you have the Bengals,
Bengals.
you have, that might be it. And then I'd go,
Yeah,
and then that
or
next tier,
Houston maybe in that this
Houston
year.
maybe, and that next tier would be like Buffalo, Miami, Jacksonville, maybe Cleveland, like that group.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably still, if I had to pick today, I'd probably say the Bills would win the division. But like you said, it's not a guarantee. Like, they tore the roster kind of apart. They're doing this, it's kind of like, the Patriots did it a few times when Brady was here. They kind of had a rebuild, but on the fly, because you still had Tom Brady and you were still, wanting to compete for Super Bowls every year. And a little different with Josh Allen and the Bills. They haven't even got to a Super Bowl there, but, like, they're in Josh Allen's kind of prime here, so they still have to compete year in, year out, and you can't just completely tear down the roster. But you get rid of Stephon Diggs, you get rid of Jordan Poyer. I mean, their receiver room, would you say that, like, the Patriots have a better wide receiver room? They have, Khalil Shakir comes back, but then it's Keon Coleman, who they drafted, first pick of the second round there. Curtis Samuel, they signed in free agency. Mac Hollins, they signed in free agency. Chase Claypool, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they signed in free agency. I'm a big Dalton Kincaid fan at the tight end spot, but it's not a great group of pass catchers there. Like, you could probably make a fair argument that the Patriots are working with a better supporting cast there. So I'd probably still lean Buffalo. Like, I don't believe in Miami until they prove they can win late in the year and actually beat a contending team. The Jets, just still with Rodgers, there's so much question marks there. So I'd probably still lean Buffalo, but they have a lot of questions too, and all three of those teams seem really tight there up top.
Yeah, to your point about the wide receiver room, I think it's very valid, and some of it might come down to what rookies emerge just across the division. I think Keon Coleman could make a big difference, right?
Yep.
In Miami, I'm blanking on. Hang on, I got to pull up the draft now. But Like, yeah, I think it's close. I think, again, I just go with Rodgers because of the veteran. And by the Miami drafted, oh, my stupid camera.
Lost you.
Yeah, I've had this camera for years now, and the plug just like doesn't hold on anymore. So I just bump it even a little bit.
And it's
That's
out.
it. There we go. Yeah, again, I just think it's close. I'm going with the Jets because of Rodgers. I think he has the veteran element. Now, the thing with Rodgers is they're going to lose in the first round of the playoffs, but I think they'll make it. As to your point with Miami, the one stat I can't get over to really buy in on the Dolphins. And look, I think I don't think Tua is great. I think the MVP talk last year was a bit much, but I don't think he's bad either. Like, I think he's, for what they want to do, he's a really good option for what they want to do in Miami. Obviously, they have a ton of speed on offense, which I like. That defense continues to get better. It's the coach. It's the coach is why I can't buy in. The under McDaniel over the last 2 years, the Dolphins are 5-10 against teams over 500. And you're not going to win a division only beating the bad teams, especially this year when you look at the AFC East schedule as a whole and how many competitive teams there are on it. So I can't buy in on Miami because I still can't buy in on Mike McDaniel.
They had a minus 110 point differential against playoff teams last year, which was like the second worst in NFL history. And it always feels like the same type of story with them. Probably even like before McDaniel, kind of like they get off to a really good start, and then it's always late in the year they just kind of falter. And then, I mean, if they have to go to a cold weather game in the playoffs, it's just like it's good night. But what do you think of Tua? Are you giving him like a 55 AAV $1 million a year extension if you're Miami right now? Because he's up, like he's in a contract year, and that's the going rate for these guys. That's where that number is at now, like 54, 55 million on the AAV. So are you giving that to Tua if you're Miami?
I mean, honestly, I wonder what the franchise tag is if it
That's
comes
true.
down from there. But I ultimately, yeah, probably, just because what's the alternative? We just went through this as Patriots fans. Do you really want to go back into that quarterback carousel and try to find the next guy? And, who knows how long that can take? Yeah, I probably, now I'm going to try to get the tenure down. I'm going to try to do it on a shorter term deal. So if he, starts having more injury problems, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And they might try to do what the Eagles did, right, where they drafted Jalen Hurts, try to take a day 2 quarterback and see if I can find, a really high level backup. But I don't love it. But one, those contracts never end up being as bad as they look because the cap goes up so exponentially.
Yeah.
I think Patrick Mahomes is like the 10th highest paid quarterback in football right now. And two, it's better than the alternative. It's better than the unknown at the quarterback position.
It's the Family Guy. It's the boat or the mystery box. You never know with that. But
right.
Yeah, someone said it like in the chat. The concussions also could be a scary thing. Like if you're giving him a lot of term, he played every game last year, but is that a guy you want to commit a lot of term to? Because he's probably he's not one of the top elite quarterbacks. He has the concussion issues, so that will be kind of interesting to see what happens with that. And you'd imagine a guy with concussion issues coming off a healthy year, like he probably wants to get that taken care of before the season starts. And if that lingers into the season, like is that going to affect him kind of mentally when he's out on the field, like having that in the back of his mind? So that's kind of something like off the field, one of the interesting storylines I think in this division. But you're on the Jets. You believe Rodgers is going to be healthy? Like the roster, if he's healthy, is probably the best in the division. But you're a believer. You're a believer in Rodgers down there in New York.
Yeah, I think last time he played meaningful football, he was pretty good, and at least in the regular season. And when I say meaningful football, that last year in Green Bay,
he was checked out.
He was checked out. It reminds me of Brady in 19.
Yeah, exactly.
Where like we were, and some people thought, and I understand why they thought, Tom Brady he took a dip and it wasn't the same at the end of New England there, and is he falling off, and he just needed to go somewhere else and get revigorated, and then you had the injury in. Again, Rodgers, so he's second to last year in Green Bay. Went 13-3, completed 69% of his passes for 4,100 yards, 37 touchdowns, 4 picks. He led the NFL with a passer rating of 11.9, a QBR of 74.1. He won his second MVP in a row. Granted, that was 3 years ago, to be fair. But I still think he can play.
And a torn Achilles ago.
I still think he can. Look, if he can be 80% of that, he's the best quarterback in the division with potentially the best roster in the division.
You believe in their offensive line? They signed Tyron Smith. They signed Morgan Moses. They drafted Olu Fashanu. I believe that was it up front, but
didn't they add one more tackle? Maybe I'm imagining that. You said
Tyron Smith, a guard, right? Too, maybe a guard, but they definitely put a lot of resources into that. And 40-year-old Rodgers coming off the Achilles, they need that line to hold up.
Maybe it's just because I've become so jaded by looking at the Patriots line that I'm like, that's fine. It'll hold up.
This is a pretty good line, actually.
Right. Maybe that's what's going on here, but it's fine. It's not going to be the best in the league. He's going to have to, be elusive, and he's going to take some hits, and that'll certainly be a part of it, but I don't think it will be a disaster.
Yep. Is Hassan Reddick playing for them? Do you know? Is he just
what do you mean? Like he got traded there?
Yeah, but then he just didn't show up at all for anything.
Did I just totally miss this?
He didn't show up for OTAs, and I don't think he showed up for mandatory minicamp because they traded for him, but they didn't touch his contract, which was the whole reason he wanted to get traded to a team and get a contract adjustment. So the Jets traded for him. Fine, good move. You needed pass rushers. You lost who was their secondary edge rusher last year? I think he signed with the Texans. I'm blanking on his name, but they lost some of their pass rushers, so they need a pass rusher. Good move, get Hassan Reddick, but then they just didn't adjust his contract, and then he just didn't show up. So that's another kind of contract situation here in the division that might have to get.
Well, Quentin Williams apparently is talking about him winning Defensive Player of the Year. So
Hassan Reddick winning Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Said this yesterday. So sounds like they plan on him being there.
That would just be so Jets if they trade for a player and he's like, no, I'm good. I'm not showing up. That would be funny.
That would be very Jets.
Yeah. What Bills hate? Give us some Bills hate. We didn't.
It's not hate. It's logic, Brian. I mean, look, first of all, what was Josh Allen before Stephon Diggs? What was Josh Allen before Stephon Diggs? Diggs is now gone. They didn't adequately replace him. Keon Coleman's fine. At times during the draft, he reminded me of N'Keal Harry. I think he has a higher ceiling, but the reality of it is he's more of and actually I think this is a really good comp for him, more like his ceiling. He's more of a Gabe Davis type, just the way he plays. He will have 3 or 4 games a year where he'll catch 4 passes for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and we won't see him the rest of the year. That's just the kind of player he is. That's, not a replacement. You look at their team. KJ Hamler, good depth receiver. Mac Hollins, good depth receiver. Curtis Samuel, gadget player. Khalil Shakir will maybe give them something. They brought in Chase Claypool. That's how desperate they are. And I know they're going to try to play Dawson Knox at receiver, but he's a tight end. That's what he is. They put this entire thing on Josh Allen. Last time he had to do that, he wasn't good. Now it's a few years later, but I think you're kidding yourself if you don't think he's going to take a step back, and the team as a whole is going to take a step back. They lost key players on the defensive side of the ball as well. They lost both of their safeties. They haven't had Tre'Davious White for a few years, but they lost him officially. Jordan Phillips is gone. He was an important leader for that team.
Leonard Floyd.
They've just lost a lot of talent. They've lost a lot of talent on a team that was purely talent driven. They weren't winning games because they were doing anything super creative, right? Because of the coaching.
What was the game against, was it Denver where they messed up the field goal?
Yes.
Yeah. And just gave them the win. And then the fake punt to DeMar Hamlin in the playoffs. Oh my gosh.
It's brutal. And I don't think there's a coach in the league with a hotter seat than Sean McDermott. Now, he'll throw everybody and his mother under the bus to save his own job. We saw him do that last year. The only ones left are him and Bean. So one of those two guys, both should be on the hot seat, but they're in trouble. They don't have a ton of help on the way, even in the next few years. They don't have any money. They're like, they have cap space, but they don't have cash on hand. They're building the stadium. They're in trouble. They are in trouble, plain and simple, period. And I talked a lot about the Stephon Diggs loss. I think that's a big loss. Mitch Morse, too, another important player on that offense. So we're going to find out if Josh Allen's the way. I think he's regarded too highly. If he can get them to 12 wins with this roster, maybe I'm wrong.
Okay. Big year for Barth and the Josh Allen narrative. So does McDermott make it out of the season, the regular season, in your eyes? I'd imagine yes, still, because they'll probably win 10 or 11 games. But once they lose to the Bengals or the Chiefs again in the playoffs, I'll probably think that's the end of the road for Sean McDermott. It's got to be. They can't run it back again if they just lose in the second round of the playoffs with Sean McDermott.
But here's the problem. He just signed a contract. Was it last year?
I
he
think
signed a contract extension.
Going into last year, yeah, before last season started.
Yeah, so he recently, recently signed June 2023. So about a year ago, he signed a contract extension. So did Bean through 2027. That's a lot of money. Can the Bills afford to buy him out and pay a second coach? Like, that's going to be a question. He may get by just, the way Marv Lewis got by for years and years and years.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't know about during the season, if Brian Daboll gets let go in New York, I don't know how, if you're the Bills, you don't make that move, because he is the only one who truly figured out Josh Allen. And if you can get him back in the building, I think you have to do it. If you're not going to fire McDermott and make him the head coach, then you give Daboll the bag. You make him the highest paid offensive coordinator in football, and you bring him in. But that's really the only way I can see it happening, because I just don't know how. I don't know if they have the money to do it.
Yeah. Daboll will be the what year did McDaniels come back? He got fired, and then he came back for like the playoffs.
Was that 11, 12,
13?
somewhere in there? Early 2010s.
It would have been 12, right?
2011, end of the 2011 season.
2011, okay, because that was when Billy O left for Penn State, and McDaniels
right, he got fired by the
so this could be our money prediction of the show.
Or the Rams, sorry.
The Giants stink. They fire Daboll, and then the Bills go all out, try to get Daboll back in the building, because that was when Josh Allen was at his best. They were really good together. So, and then Daboll's there for the playoffs. Probably still doesn't work. Maybe he becomes their next head coach. Who knows? But yeah, McDermott's seat is very, very hot. So,
and they can still win the division. Just to be clear, they can still win the division. They're not going to be the team they were the last 2 years. And I think the Jets, with Rodgers healthy, close the gap. Miami, it's just a consistency problem. Miami's had a ton of talent. Miami is still very talented. Coaching is an issue. But when you get McDermott versus McDaniel, I mean, all bets are off. That's just, who will screw up the least.
Yeah. Which I think that was kind of our stance last year, I think, about the Bills. Like, the roster kind of took a step back, but they're probably still going to win 10, 11 games and win the division, which is kind of exactly what they did. But the roster took another step back this year. So they still have Josh Allen. They still have a good, front seven defensively, some playmakers on the back end. Like, they'll still be in contention for this thing, but like, it's on Josh Allen now. Like, if he is going to kind of cement his flag as a top 3 quarterback in this league, which, like, I'm more on the side that he has the talent to do so. Like, this is his time to kind of prove that. So, Patriots, they're fourth. They're fourth in this division based off roster. What would have to happen, do you think, for them to finish third or second? Like, Aaron Rodgers getting hurt, but let's say like third and being in contention for one of those wild card, like the last wild card spot.
I mean, so aside from injuries, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Like, if Josh Allen gets hurt, the Bills are in massive, massive, massive trouble, right? Or if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, the Jets are in major trouble. But I do like Andrew Peasley, who's their, I think, 4th string quarterback right now. Actually, I like Tyrod Taylor too. So, for whatever that's worth. But like, outside of that, I think the best chance the Patriots have to not finish in last is it all just compounds on Miami. Tua in a contract year, Tyreek Hill getting older, it starts getting in their head they can't beat these good teams, and they just have a meltdown. And it doesn't work. It doesn't click. They have just a bad season. Nobody's on the same page, because I think they might be susceptible to that for a few reasons. I just named some of them, right? Maybe that gets them down to like 7 or 8 wins. And then Drake May steps in right away and it's just the real deal. Drake May steps in and is winning them football games. And now maybe they get to 7 or 8. Those are 2 big ifs. The May one probably being bigger, but those are 2 big ifs. If it were to happen, that's how I think it would happen, is Miami just melts down.
Yeah.
I think, and that's not to say like the Jets and Bills could melt down too. I just don't think their floor is quite that low.
Yeah, their floor is definitely higher.
Pending injuries.
Yes. Yeah.
Miami's floor is a little lower just because Tua's injury history, and I mean the Bills coach is a nutcase too. But McDaniel just is not proven to do anything.
They still have Mike
Dolphins.
White.
I think they signed him to a 2-year deal. Let me see. Pull this up here. My internet is going like very slow.
I'll try to pull it up. Yeah,
their backup is it's still Mike White, and they still have Skylar Thompson.
Okay.
And just for the sake of completing the conversation, the Bills. Oh, isn't Nathan Peterman back in Buffalo? Oh, Mitchell Trubisky is back in Buffalo. I mean,
Trubisky, yes.
And they have Shane Buechele, SMU legend.
Wow. Yeah, but I mean, even if one of those teams kind of melts down, the big if, like, it comes back to Drake May, like that's how the Patriots ceiling kind of gets raised. If Drake May starts more games than we imagine and like just is awesome. Like if he's kind of, I don't want to say CJ Stroud because that team like won a lot of games, went to the playoffs, but if he's just kind of on that level where he raises the whole ceiling of the team and you know, one of the other teams kind of falls off and they can catch them. But still, you know, they're going to be most likely 4th unless, you know, things get really crazy there. But so you have the Jets. Just last AFC East question. How many teams in the division make the playoffs? Are you just going Jets and Bills too, or does a third Miami team sneak in there? And we can kind of do the whole playoff picture. We'll get into the whole, you know, around the NFL in a little bit here, but just AFC East, like how many playoff teams would you take?
I think there's a chance there's 3. I think there's a good chance there's 3. Just because the West only has the Chiefs, right?
Yep.
Maybe so Jacksonville or Houston, whoever doesn't win the division, maybe one of them sneaks in. And then you have like, can the Dolphins be better than? So how many teams is this? So you have the Browns, Bengals, Ravens, Texans, Jaguars. That's 5 potential playoff teams. 2 of them are going to win their division. So can the Dolphins be better than 2 of Cincinnati, Cleveland, Jacksonville, Houston? You get what I'm trying to say? Like I can't.
Yeah.
You get what I'm like. I think that's doable. I don't know that it's a lock, but I certainly think it's doable.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Probably 2, but you know, maybe one of those teams sneaks in, and like we'll always have injuries play such a big part of this, right? Like last year, we probably were sitting here saying the Bengals are. I think I had them going to like the Super Bowl. Then Joe Burrow's wrist isn't the same, you know, isn't functioning all year, and they don't even make the playoffs. So one of those teams you always imagine like will fall out and open the door for someone else. So it'll be an interesting division. There's not maybe a clear-cut favorite, but there's 3 teams that are kind of all in that same boat who could be contending for that AFC East title all throughout the year. And then Patriots are just kind of sitting there, maybe play some spoiler late in the year or something along those lines, or maybe surprise people and get into the mix. But before we get into a little bit more of around the league, Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. The finals are over. The Celtics still the NBA champions. We're getting ready for USA basketball, but the hoops action is still ongoing over on Prize Picks as women's basketball is in full force with young stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese leading the way alongside greats like Breanna Stewart. You can win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. I've enjoyed picking Caitlin Clark more than 2.5 3-pointers every game because she has been balling out lately. And if you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has got you covered every week, from lowering select player stats projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. So download Prize Picks today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy over on Prize Picks. So where do you want to go? Rest of the NFL, stay in the AFC, I guess, for now?
I guess I think the big question is, do the Chiefs have any real competition in the AFC? And I think the answer is no. I think the answer is no.
No.
Nobody has risen to that tier definitively. Definitively. If I had to pick one team to challenge the Chiefs, it's the Baltimore Ravens. Because the Baltimore Ravens, actually, this is fair. Okay, so these two kind of have the same thing. Cincinnati too. But the Ravens specifically remind me a lot of the Boston Celtics. And what I mean by that is, how many times the last few years did the Celtics get to the conference championship or the championship, but it took so much out of them to get there, and Tatum was dealing with his wrist, Jaylen Brown was dealing with his knee, and it was like, man, if they were just healthy, they'd really be able to do it. And a lot of people have talked about how Lamar Jackson really hasn't won big games in his career. And that is true to this point. He doesn't strike me as like a choker, though, as a guy that can't win the big game. The style he plays, he's just always banged up late in the year. I would love to see him get there healthy, because I think he can do it. He's just got to get there. So, like, the addition of a guy like Derrick Henry, who can just wear the workload all season, I think could be massive. Massive. So I like the Ravens, and good point in the chat too. The Bengals, again, assuming health, they improved their offensive line, but Joe Burrow's got to stay healthy, and he's now the injury prone thing, you know, the Andrew Luck-ish comparison is starting to creep up on him a little bit. We're not there quite yet, but he's been hurt, you know, a good amount. Jamar Chase has dealt with injuries. Who knows where T. Higgins is at mentally? If they can lock in, like, that's the next tier to me, is the Ravens and the Bengals. I won't put the Texans there just yet, because it was just 1 year. I need to see a little more of them.
See it again.
Yeah. Right. But to me, it's the Ravens and the Bengals. But the question for both those teams is health. And those are two teams that have not done a good job of staying healthy the last few years.
Yeah. The Joe Burrow thing is going to be really interesting. Like, if that wrist kind of lingers, like, I don't know if throughout his career or just even into this year, like how that affects
supposedly him. It is.
Yeah. He was on a part of my take today. They released it, and I was only able to listen to like the first 20 minutes, but he's like, he still wasn't like doing push-ups, and he still wasn't doing like certain exercises because of his wrist. Yeah. He's like, I just haven't been able to do that. So I don't know if that's gonna, I mean, like, not an ideal injury for a quarterback there. You're throwing wrist to have any, like, to have issues reoccurring issues keep popping up there. So that'll be interesting to see how that kind of responds, how he looks. But maybe that's your Celtics, right? They get to the championship a few years ago, and now your star has a wrist injury, and now they get over the hump. So, but yeah, I agree with you. I'd go Ravens. I mean, they were a Zay Flowers fumble away from beating the Chiefs last year, right? And then assuming everything checks out with Joe Burrow, like, he's beat the Chiefs, so you put him in that department. And they did shore up their offensive line beyond signing Trent Brown. They Amarius Mims, right? That was their first round pick. Yep. So they'll have they'll have some reinforcements up there as well. So those two are probably the two under the Chiefs. And then I agree with you, like, Houston showed a lot more than anyone was really expecting last year. CJ Stroud was awesome, got Stephon Diggs, but, like, let's just see you do it again. And if you can do it again, like, they're probably right in that category with the Ravens and the Bengals. We just kind of got to wait and see it.
I have to see it. Like, they have the potential to be. They certainly, of that next group, and that next group is Houston, Jacksonville, Buffalo, Miami, Cleveland. We'll get to the Chargers. The Chargers are their own thing. But, like, that's that next group. Houston probably is the best chance to break out of that group. But again, I think you got to see it because it is just such a young team, and they make a big addition in Stephon Diggs. Let's see what that looks like. The Jaguars, or do you just want to kind of go through division, touch on some of these teams? I guess we can finish up the AFC North. The Browns, I think, will be fine. They punched a bit above their weight last year. I think they'll be okay. I think
That's
they'll
just
be
all. What is Deshaun Watson gonna do? Like,
right.
that
8,
is
9, 10 win team. The defense is good. Nick Chubb will be back, but
yeah. I was gonna. Is he good for week 1 or like camp? Nick Chubb.
I don't know about camp. I believe I saw week 1 was the plan.
Probably should be.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Again, when I say I don't know about camp, I literally don't know. I haven't seen anything.
I like their defense though. Their defense will keep them in games, but like Deshaun Watson was not very good last year. So Joe Flacco ain't walking through that door this year. So how's Deshaun Watson going to look? That's big for them. And Pittsburgh is Justin Fields versus Russell Wilson. So who knows how that's going to end?
I did this conversation the other day on the radio with Mark Dendero on 98.5 Sports Hub. Before or after, I'm not gonna do over under because it gets confusing. But before or later, Patriots pick 4.5 in the draft.
I'd go
higher or lower.
Lower being like 5, 6, 7.
Later.
Yeah,
later.
Yeah,
okay.
later.
So I think so too. And the reason I said that is it doesn't even have a lot to do with the Patriots. I don't think people realize how many bad teams there's going to be in the NFL this year. I know the Steelers have the whole thing with Tomlin and they never finish under 500 and it's been like 15 years, whatever. They could be really bad this year. It really feels like they are a TJ Watt or Minkah Fitzpatrick injury away from being a really bad football team. So just to round out the AFC North, that's do you have any faith in the Steelers? Like I clearly don't, but
no, not really. I was trying to pull up because they traded like Deontay Johnson too.
Yeah.
Did they draft a receiver? I was trying to pull up their depth chart quickly.
They did, but not high.
Oh, they drafted Roman Wilson.
Right.
So their top 3 receivers is George Pickens, who you never know what you're going to get with George Pickens.
Right.
Van Jefferson, and then Roman Wilson. So
it's not great.
Not a great cast while you're trying to either...
They do have, to give him credit, they do have Pat Freiermuth. We'll give him credit for that. But
that's true. But not a great kind of cast there when you're trying to resurrect Russell Wilson and Justin Fields at the same time there.
They might lead the league in rushing attempts this year. But so neither one of us super high on the Steelers. We kind of talked about the Texans. Here's an interesting one. How you feeling about the Jacksonville Jaguars? I can't. Honestly, that's the right answer. That exhale's the right answer.
It's tough to get a read on them because I mean they were so good 2 years ago, then they started hot last year. Then the floor just kind of caved in. The AFC South could be like sneaky fun this year. Like,
oh yeah,
Anthony Richardson and like Shane Steichen was awesome for them, the Colts last year, but he didn't have Anthony Richardson for most of the year. I don't know how you feel about the Titans, but like they kind of sneaky put Will Levis in a good situation. It just
they did.
Yeah,
right, hang on. Let's do the Colts first because real quick thought on the Colts. I think there's an argument brewing here.
I think the Colts could be a playoff team. Like they're going to be in the mix for one of those wild card spots.
They are
maybe the division, depending. Like if the Texans don't take that jump, like they could probably. They only lost the division by a game last year, and that was without Anthony Richardson for 12, 13 games. So I'm pretty high on the Colts this year. I think
they are the sleeper team in the AFC. Like, because we don't know. Anthony Richardson only played 4 games last year. He got hurt. We just don't know. They could be an 8 or 9 win team. They could essentially be what they were last year. And maybe Anthony Richardson isn't much of an upgrade over Gardner Minshew. Or maybe Anthony Richardson's a stud and we just never got to see it. And the one thing they've done, you talk about putting the quarterback in a position to succeed. You look at the wide receivers there. Yeah. They add A.D. Mitchell to what was already a great group. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce. They're in great shape. So it all hinges on Anthony Richardson. He was an unknown in the draft. He was as much of a wild card as you see in the NFL draft at the quarterback position go that high. So he's the big unknown. Here's from out Titans. Did they, so you say they put Will Levis in a better position.
Yeah.
That is your belief. How? How exactly did they do that?
They offensive-minded head coach, even though I was
Okay,
a
but
fan.
worse head coach.
Yeah, I was
Just
a
to be clear,
fan of
worse head coach.
Mike Vrabel, but offensive-minded head coach. They got
But
Calvin
again,
Ridley.
worse head coach.
Okay. Okay.
Like Adam Gase, offensive-minded head coach,
I
not
like
putting your
Brian
team in a
Callahan.
position
I
to
mean, he's a
succeed.
question mark,
He's
but
not Adam Gase. Like that's
yeah.
unfair. But Vrabel, I thought Vrabel was one of the best coaches in the NFL. I
Yeah.
thought they were crazy they fired him. I wanted to be here.
Their top 3 receivers, they kind of remodeled it, and I think they work well together. Like DeAndre Hopkins isn't prime DeAndre Hopkins, but he looked good last year. They add Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd to that mix. So I think that's they're old, but like those are 3 really steady, consistent guys who can make some big plays when you need it on the receiver position. They drafted the tackle. All the draft guys just have escaped my brain now.
I know, it's crazy that happens. They did draft J.C. Latham.
J.C. Latham. They signed, I believe it was Lloyd Cushenberry as a center, and then Bill Callahan as their offensive line coach. So the offensive line should take a big step forward. So I know they lost Derrick Henry. He's kind of declining. He's going to do good on Baltimore because it's Baltimore probably. But I know they lost him, but I think their offensive line got better. The receivers got better with Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd, even though they're on the older side. So I think, that's it's not the greatest situation, but I think it's a better situation than Will Levis was in last year.
I think Will Levis is a guy that needs a lot more than that. And I don't think he's going to have a long leash. Not the front office that picked him, right? New coach.
That's true.
Or sorry, his same front office. Rand Cawthorn is still there, but
coach though.
New coaching staff, new offense, all of that. I think he's going to have a short leash. I think he get ugly in Tennessee this year. I think he get really ugly in Tennessee.
I agree. I think they're pretty volatile. Like they could surprise some people, or they could just like be picking second or third in the draft. But I wasn't like a huge Will Levis guy in the draft. I liked Will Levis. I like his arm talent. I thought he had some good flashes last year. So a lot is on him. Like, can he kind of take that next step too? That year 2 jump, and like I think the big thing was him, like more of the mental side of the game. Like he's got the physical tools. Like, can he do some of the things on the mental side? So a lot of it is on him. But I thought the situation around him kind of took a small step forward, I'd say.
Yeah, I maybe small. I just didn't think it was great last year to begin with. They went 6-11, and I think it could get frustrating there. In the West,
I don't know what they did defensively though. Well, they got L'Jarius Sneed.
They did get L'Jarius Sneed,
but I feel like they lost some front 7 guys. I want to say
that sounds right. And their defense wasn't very good last year either.
Yeah.
Right.
Hang on, I don't think it was.
Pull it up.
Outside of that random Miami game late in the year, which was just Miami again.
They did draft Tavondre Sweat, who we both like.
There you go. You might be back on the Titans now.
Yeah, that might have to be. It doesn't say who they lost. Weird. Okay, whatever. I'm not that high on the Titans.
All right.
And in the West, same thing. Like, we'll see what Antonio Pierce can do. I do like Antonio Pierce, but they don't have a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. Devontae Adams still kind of checked out, it sounds like. They've lost some players on defense. So I don't know about the Raiders. I don't know what the hell the Broncos were thinking drafting Bo Nix. That never made any sense. And then they traded Jerry Jeudy, and they got worse. And I'll say it, I'm out on the Chargers. I'm out.
Really?
I think there was a way to salvage that when they moved, because they were never winning anything with Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley's the worst coach in the league. Was just, terrible. Absolutely.
Did he get a job? I'll look that up while you keep.
He's like, I think he's an advisor somewhere. Look it up. Hopefully not, but he should go the Adam Gase route. And I thought there was a way to salvage it. You have Justin Herbert. You have some talent on both sides of the ball to use it. Instead, they go out and add Jim Harbaugh, who's going to run the ball 35 times a game, and completely disregard Justin Herbert. They draft Joe Alt, the best left tackle in the draft, move him to the right side, complete waste. Trade down or draft a real right tackle or something. So many better options than what they did. And they had to make some of these moves for the cap, but they lost Keenan Allen. They lost Mike Williams. I would have tried to hold on to one of those guys and move somebody on the defensive side of the ball instead. I believe they kept Khalil Mack, right? And obviously they still have Bosa.
Yeah.
So I would have tried to move one of those defensive guys instead, but they're going to try to win every game 10-3 and run the ball. And it's going to be the same thing they did in Michigan. That's not going to work. And we've seen with the Patriots just tried to do this. They're going to try to do what the Patriots try and do for the last 3 or 4 years. Now they have a better quarterback, but the whole point of the system is negating the quarterback. So no, I don't believe in the Chargers. I think they hired the wrong coach, and it sucks that they're going to waste more years of Justin Herbert.
Yep. Yeah, Quentin Johnson being your number one receiver isn't great. Or I guess maybe
even the number one?
It's him or Joshua Palmer, unless
I might take Josh Palmer.
Yeah, I probably would too.
They drafted somebody, right?
They drafted McConkey, but like he's going to be your more inside guy.
Yeah, but it could be McConkey. Staley's in great.
Yeah,
Staley. We'll get to Staley. I just saw what his job is. We'll get to Staley.
But yeah, I mean, volume wise, it's probably going to be McConkey in that offense. He'll just take the Roman Wilson Michigan role, and Gus Edwards and. They just took the Baltimore backfield, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, who those two are both going to be hurt by week 6 with the amount of time.
And you know who their OC is, right? It's Greg Roman.
Yeah, Greg Roman. So they're going to be running the ball a lot.
They're going to try to run the Lamar Jackson offense with Justin Herbert. Makes no sense.
Poor Justin Herbert. Oh, their fullback's Ben Mason, though. That's fun.
Former Raven.
And former Wolverine.
That's true.
So,
and I'm sure Donovan Edwards will be their first round pick next year.
Yep. That's about as much of a Harbaugh team. I mean, their tight ends are Will Dissly, Donald Parham, Hayden Hurst. Yeah, that's a Harbaugh team.
The Chiefs definitely took a bit of a hit this offseason. Like, I think their roster is worse than it was last year. I don't think that's a hot take. Maybe it is. It doesn't mean it's not good, but it's worse than it was last year. They might win more games because that division could be
bad,
stinky.
Yeah.
You could have... Are you going to have, outside of the Chiefs, you going to have a 7-win team in that division? Raiders and Broncos both won 8 last year. Chargers won 5. You going to have a 6-win team in that division besides the Chiefs?
I don't think so.
You really might not.
Yeah. Unless, like, Harbaugh catches fire or something. Like, I'd probably lean the Chargers out of any of those just because they have Justin Herbert. But, like, as we just said, like, the roster isn't, like, great offensively.
It doesn't make sense. Just none of it makes sense.
Yeah, it's weird.
All right, you want to talk a little NFC football before we wrap this up?
Yeah. Brandon Staley is a assistant coach / defense on the Kyle Shanahan staff with the San Francisco.
Which is
49ers.
why, to go back to the point, and we'll start out west here.
Well, so he's going to be the defensive coordinator at some point, right? Because didn't they fire Steve Wilkes after the Super Bowl?
They made an example of Steve Wilkes.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. They made an example. And Steve Wilkes did not have a great Super Bowl, but he did excellent up to that point. And he was not the biggest reason they lost that game. Also, they hired Nick Sorensen as their DC.
Okay.
So he's kind of in that
advisor.
I'm talking about Staley is kind of in that Joe Judge role. Here's the thing. So to go back to the point, do the Chiefs have any real competition standing in the way of a three-peat? They should. They should. Because the Niners have the best roster in football, and I don't think it's close. Niners have a great roster. They play a really exciting style of football. They're hard to defend. They've got depth. They're not a team. I mean, injuries can obviously catch up to any NFL team, but they can afford to lose a few guys and they'll still be in very good shape. It's part of the reason I think they're not trading Brandon Ayuk to keep those redundancies. Good team. But as long as Shanahan is the coach, I can't consider them a serious Super Bowl threat because we are past the point. He did it in the Super Bowl when he was the OC in Atlanta. He did it. He's done it in 2 Super Bowls with the Niners and in a conference championship game. Up 2 scores, fourth quarter with a average quarterback, and he's trying to call 4 verts. He's like a drunk kid playing Madden. Just wants to pile up the numbers in the Super Bowl. I don't know why he does it. I don't know if it's math. I don't know if it's arrogance. I don't know if it's ego. I don't know what. I don't know if it's just plain stupidity. Can't get a feel for the game. We are past the point where, he'll figure it out. He's young. He's inexperienced, right? He hasn't been there. No, he's been there plenty. He's been in this league a long time. It's happened to him multiple times. I hope he proves me wrong because I like a lot of the guys on that roster. I'd like to see him be champions, even if it means Evan will take the biggest victory lap ever on me. I'll put up for it because it'd be cool to see that team win, and it'd be great for the Chiefs to not win. But I can't consider that team a legitimate Super Bowl contender as long as he's the head coach. I can't do it.
Okay. I'm a Shanahan guy, so I hope he gets it done. I will say, I was looking my one of my fantasy leagues got automatically renewed today, so I was just going through stuff, and the Brock Purdy, the latest news on Brock Purdy was just Niners plan to be more pass heavy in 2024 is the belief. So
no, what are you doing, Kai? How do you defend this guy? Great, don't get me wrong. Great play designer, excellent offensive coordinator. That's where it ends. I don't know how you can still defend the guy as a head coach.
Yeah, it's the Athletics. Matt Barrows believes Niners will be more pass heavy. They called 109 pass plays and only 77 runs over 3 games in the playoffs, which was a drastic departure from their run forward ratio of the past. Given the investment at wide receiver, they drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round, and Kyle Shanahan's trust in Brock Purdy, the belief is they'll be more pass heavy this year. So,
all right. So Chiefs are 3-peating.
Chiefs. No one else in the NFC. You don't believe in Detroit or Jordan Love?
Detroit's good, but I don't think they're that good. And their coach has, and I like Dan Campbell, but their coach has some issues.
Yeah,
in terms of game management. The Cowboys are going to win 13 games and one and done.
Losing the playoffs.
Yeah,
Mike
they're
McCarthy
not
gone.
Philly has the ability to do it, but that feels like such a shaky operation right now. If everything goes right, Philly has a chance. But I just don't think everything's going to go right for Philly. Jordan Love, I need it kind of like the Texans. I need to see another year or two. I think they will get there. I think they are on the path to being the best team in the NFC. They're not there just yet. They're still a little young. There's still a couple holes in that roster. Not quite. And then the South is the South. I mean, it's the Wild
most
West.
Boring division in football, probably.
It's the most fun division in football. Are you kidding me?
Boring fun.
The winner is going to be 7-9. And it's going to come down to the final game, and it's going to be awesome. And it's just going to be terrible football the whole way through. It's going to be great.
They have 2 quarterbacks. Maybe the Falcons, they could finish 9-8.
Falcons could finish 9-8. It'll be Atlanta and Tampa. They'll both be 9-10 win teams, and we'll see where Kirk Cousins is at coming off the Achilles if Michael Penix gets any play this year. But those are 9-10 win teams right now. The top of the NFC is the Cowboys, but they're not a playoff threat. The Lions, or the second tier, I say, because the Niners are the top.
Niners, yeah.
Cowboys, Eagles, but they both have big asterisks. Lions, Packers. Nobody else in the West scares. Again, to go back to my other point about the Patriots draft pick, too, you look in the NFC and the teams that could be the bad teams. Cardinals could be bad. Carolina could be bad. Minnesota could be bad. Giants could be bad. Commanders could be bad. I think those are all teams that could be 4 or 5 win teams.
No JJ McCarthy?
I said Minnesota.
I know. You don't believe in JJ? Well, we know you don't believe in JJ McCarthy.
No.
I thought we had, we agreed he could be good. If there was a spot for him.
That's probably a little harsh. That's the spot for him. It's going to come down to Justin Jefferson. They're going to go as far as Justin Jefferson. So I take that back. That was an emotional. I'll take that off the list. But I can see the Giants winning 3 games. Absolutely see that.
The Commanders, if it's Jaden Daniels, right? Let's see what Jaden Daniels
see. Well, they do not have a good offensive line, so you could also get hurt. They could be like what the Colts were last year, but without Gardner Minshew to bail them out.
The Saints are due for a blow up.
The Saints could be bad. Did the Panthers really get any better?
Well, they beefed up the interior of their offensive line. Remember, they signed like 2 guards to big contracts. They traded for Deontay Johnson. They drafted Xavier Legette, so their receivers should theoretically be better. But it's nothing like a major step forward,
But
and that's
they
it's
won
Bryce Young. Like, it's still on Bryce Young.
top 5 pick. I look, if you win 5 games or fewer, you're probably in the range for top 5 pick. Panthers won 2 games last year. Are they more than 3 games better?
No, definitely
Right.
not.
So they could be bad. And I still don't believe in Kyler Murray. I know they got Marvin Harrison Jr. and they had a good draft and they did well in free agency, but Kyler's going to get hurt. They have no backup quarterback. I still think Arizona could be a 4 or 5 win team.
Okay. What do you think about the Bears? Could that be like a sneaky wild card team? Because
Yeah.
the roster, like, it's another rookie quarterback, so big question mark. But Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, and I'm forgetting their other third receiver. Who's their third receiver?
I'll pull it up. But no, I think everybody's going to call them this year's Texans. Yeah, I think that's going to be the popular, like that's going to be the expectation. The third receiver is DJ Moore.
That's right. And then Cole Kmet had a good year.
Yeah. And they had a good defense already. Like they're in a tougher division than the Texans were last year. I think that's the big difference. They got Detroit, Green Bay, Minnesota. They could be like a 9-10 win team. It's like you said, it's going to come down to Caleb Williams. A lot of rookies actually they're counting on, but they'll be. I don't think they're going to be back picking in the top 5. Look, they had the 9th pick last year, right? They picked first overall, but that was because the Panthers screwed up. They had the 9th pick last year, so Matt Eberflus is on a hot seat. He's got to get off to a good start, but they should be in the mix for wild card spot.
Yeah, Matt Eberflus, like, he screams more defensive coordinator to me than head coach. So, he got the defense playing, really good at the end of last season, but I think Shane Waldron will be kind of big for them there. He's
a lot of pressure on him. He's the guy
as the OC. So they'll be kind of an interesting team to watch there. But yeah, it's San Fran in the NFC. It's Kansas City in the AFC, and then kind of everyone else there. So, hopefully we just don't have a Super Bowl rematch. That'll kind of be not as fun. But I think, like, from a Patriots standpoint, my big thing that you kind of harped on a few times there was, and I got asked in my mailbag 2 weeks ago, it's like, are the Patriots just a lock for the top 5 again? And like, they might not be a playoff contender, but there's a lot of bad teams, it looks like, in the league. And you like, it was so hard for the Patriots last year, and they still won 4 games, and they were a player 2 away from winning another 1 or 2 games. So with their improvements, like, even if they get 5-6 wins, like, I would be surprised just with the rest of the teams in the league if they're kind of picking back in the top 5 again there.
Right.
Yeah,
that's kind of my take too.
Yep. So any other takes around the league? Any other predictions you want to fire off? Or
I think that's it.
That's about it. All right. So very quickly before we call it for the day, baseball season is in full swing, and Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace for all your Major League Baseball tickets, and it makes getting tickets faster and easier because prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying all your MLB tickets. They have flash deals to save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event, and zone deals to save if you're looking to sit in a specific section. They have last-minute deals where you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports. If you're in the Fenway area in Boston and you don't know what you're doing that night, just log on to Game Time if the Red Sox are in town. 60% off last-minute tickets. And you can even get your comedy, theater, or concert tickets on Game Time as well. Tons of concerts at Fenway. Gillette, Zach Bryan will be back next month. Lots of other good artists coming to perform this summer. So take your guesswork out of buying all your tickets and your MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So before we log off quick, I mean, what a weekend for the Red Sox, right? Like awesome come from behind win. It was Friday night, I believe, against the Yankees, and then wasn't a great Saturday, but awesome game last night. Cutter Crawford shoved. Devers just owns that team. So awesome week for the Red Sox. They are 18-9 since John Henry said teams have a 1-20 or 1-30 shot of winning the World Series. So they're fighting back from what he had to say. And I mean, they're just buy at the deadline right now. So awesome week for the Sox. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know if you saw John Henry's comments today, but it's a good thing we're talking about the Red Sox because apparently he can't. So we have to do it because we own the team. Encouraging weekend, and it sucks to come out of that. And here's the owner basically reminding us he doesn't care. And knowing that they're not going to do anything about it at the deadline. And it's going to be the same thing. They're going to get discouraged and they're going to slow down in August. You're going to lose one of the best managers in baseball because he's sick of this, which I don't blame him. It's a shame. We should be unilaterally celebrating the Red Sox today. And I'm not saying that we can't celebrate them, especially Rafael Devers, who had a great weekend. But man, I just don't know how it's frustrating. It's like I am so ready to have a baseball season in September and invest in this team. They don't need to make that many moves. I'm not saying they have to go out and get Garrett Crochet and Andrew Vaughn from the White Sox. Like that's going to be an exorbitant price. No, thank you. I'm good on that. Can you go get a starter? And I don't even need a first baseman because Casas is coming back, but I don't want to hear Casas is the deadline acquisition.
It's so obvious that's what it's going to be.
Go get a real shortstop or real middle infielder. Like, but they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it, and it sucks, and it's frustrating. You worried about the Bruins and Swayman?
No. The fact that neither side filed for arbitration, like, I'm pretty confident that that's going to get done. He was at development camp. He was skating today. Someone posted a picture. So he's been around, I think. No worries with that. I think that'll just get hammered out whenever. So no worries there. But yeah, the Red Sox, it's just frustrating that they'll probably not gonna do anything. And again, it's a fun team. It's an exciting team. It's a young team. So I wish they would do something. But the Cora point is good too because he's.
Did you hear him last night?
He's probably already gone. And if this team just like sits on their hands again at the deadline, like you can't blame him for leaving. And it's too bad because he's awesome. He's one of the best managers in the sport. But he would have the right to kind of leave at that point. So, but we'll see. Awesome. Jaron Duran was an all-star. They robbed my boy Connor Wong though. But
yeah, that was weird. He should have been in. But they got 3. I mean, you can't complain.
Yeah,
that's a good number for what this team is.
Devers, Houck, and Duran. That's a good trio to send. So what's that next week? And the next week, I think, is the All-Star game, and then the trade deadline. So we will wait and see. But we will wrap it up for tonight. We'll be back either Wednesday or Thursday to talk whatever. Probably do another live Q&A, and then next week it's training camp preview time, the last week before we get back on the practice field. So make sure you follow Patriots CLNS on Twitter. We'll let you know when we're going live. You can also subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications so you are notified when we are on here live. You can also follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com to check out his written content. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines and head over to patspulpit.com to read our work over there as well. Thank you all for tuning in with us tonight, and we will see you guys later this week.